I want to start this with something Darren Drager said on June 7th. At least that's when this was reported. Darren Drager on TSN's Insider Trading said the Senators could trade Mike Hoffman at the draft. GM Pierre Dorian is getting and considering offers, but they're not just there yet. He said there's a strong market for him. There's been a strong market for him, and it's much stronger now that there's more flexibility. Darren Drager was on TSN 1200 talking about TSN's Frank Saravelli's top 25 candidates, and Senators are not really interested in trading Karlsson. Drager said the Senators trading Hoffman is more likely than Karlsson, despite Saravelli having Karlsson ranked higher. In fact, I'd be surprised if Mike Hoffman wasn't traded at the draft, he said. I think that the interest has been significant dating back to the turn of the year, January 1st. It was significant right up to the trade deadline. But as we predicted on February 26th, when you've got a valuable player like this, obviously the expected rate of return is going to be high. And in season, sometimes it's just too difficult to break up your roster to give the pieces that are needed to acquire a player like that. There's more flexibility in the system right now, both in dollars and prospects and in players. There's some urgency right now from Ottawa's standpoint. You've got to get to a place where you feel like there's no negotiation. If Erik Karlsson comes in and says he wants $12 million a year, I'm not suggesting that he will, but if he did, maybe that's just flat out too much money for Eugene Melnyk and the Senators to chew on. And if Newport News makes it clear that there really isn't going to be a negotiation, it is what it is, then by position of general manager, you got to listen to the multitude of interests that will be expressed. I just thought that was interesting. I thought that was interesting because this story just keeps growing. So I'm gonna give you guys a little bit of an update on this, and this is from the Ottawa Citizen or the Ottawa Sun. Ottawa media is not looking kindly on this, and they shouldn't be. Just when it looked like the Senators' season from hell was mercifully over, things took an unbelievable turn from the worst. And they get into the derogatory statements. Hoffman emphatically denies Carrick's involvement. We've been aware of this situation for months, said Mike Liut, the managing director of the hockey division of Octagon Agency, which represents Hoffman. This happened at the end of the year. We've been very clear with the club. I've talked to the Players Association about it. We've been very upfront about Mike's support of Monica and denial of what's going on. He told that to Eric face-to-face at the end of the season. There's a report that's come out since then that since the video did yesterday, a couple weeks ago, there was a confrontation between the two in the parking lot. Mike has made himself available to get to the bottom of it. Cyberbullying in our society is not good. It's bad. Sounds very okay. This is epidemic. That's certainly not something Mike and Monica are going to engage in. It's been very perplexing to them. They've been very supportive of the Karlssons and what's gone on, notwithstanding the accusation, and are really mystified to how this is landing on Monica. Mike is not involved. He's supporting Monica, and they've done some research. They clearly want to find out who this is that's responsible. This story absolutely trivializes everything else that went amiss for the Senators throughout the 2017-18 season. And they get into everything that's going on here. As a hockey player, I'm effing outraged over something like this, said one veteran outside the organization. If this was ever going on in a team, and I'm sure it is in today's world to some degree, it's too hard to win. You just can't have this. You can't have the smell of it. Somebody called it the story of the year. How about the story of all years? This could be turned into a made-for-TV movie, except it might be too far-fetched. And I don't expect W Network's hockey wives to dare to touch it. Who's telling the truth, Melinda or Monica? Until that comes out and the investigation could be both long and arduous, the Senators will suffer greatly. They've been trying to trade Hoffman. They want to do it before the draft in 10 days. Nobody will want anything to do with him before his fiancée is proven innocent or guilty and wants to put their own room at risk. Same goes for Karlsson, who in 1 year will seek to become one of the highest paid players in the game. The Senators say they'll offer him a contract extension when permitted by league rule in 3 weeks. It's believed Karlsson will reject it, forcing the Senators to trade him. And of course, yesterday I reported on Oliver Ekman-Larsson having a verbal agreement with John Chayka. There's nothing stopping the Senators from sitting down with Karlsson and saying, so what are you looking at? And him saying, I want this. And they go, all right, we'll deal with that, sure. And they shake hands, and there's an agreement, and They call the rest of the NHL GMs and say, hey, so Karlsson's off the market. Sorry. Hoffman's on the market, though. Isn't that fantastic? But if Melinda's wrong with her suspicions or proof and that sicko continues to harass her, does that not limit the number of teams willing to pay up prospects and draft picks and $80 to $100 million for her husband? Either way, one of Monica or Melinda appears to be in serious trouble. It's past the tipping point. One of them is going to be guilty of something, either harassment or defamation. And one hockey player, still very much in his prime years, could take a hit. Wives have come out. The wife of Kyle Turris, the wife of Andrew Hammond, both players who are no longer Ottawa Senators, but they were in the midst of Hockey Wives, and Hockey Wives hang out. It's something I've remarked upon for decades. The Canucks, very often when they have their telethons, their Canucks for Kids telethons, you'll see Canucks Wives working the phones. Canucks Wives are together a lot. They do PR stuff together. And you know, there is the Hockey Wives show, Hockey Wives Talk. And what is interesting to me is that there are apparently numerous accounts she's gone under. There was one nasty comment left on, I'm sure you guys have followed the Erik Karlsson story, to where he had the footprints of his unborn child on Instagram. And there was a post on there that was deprecating to his wife. And his response to this wasn't just, you're a horrible troll, and just deleting or blocking. It was basically, I'm sick of this. You've been creating dummy accounts for months. You've been harassing us through accounts you've either faked or paid for. Stop it. So these attacks, and again, Hockey Wives Talk. These attacks, to me, Karlsson thinks he knows, and his wife believe they know exactly who it is. And other wives are like, yeah, no, this has been going on for ages, and yeah, I'm glad she stood up for herself. And the other thing that's interesting too is that Karlsson's wife wanted to keep this under wraps, didn't want to say anything. And one of the wives on their account said, this is the kind of woman that Karlsson's wife is, that even though she's being harassed into the ground, she doesn't want to talk about it publicly. She doesn't want anybody else's name to be brought into this. She doesn't want to drag anybody through the dirt. And again, and I said this yesterday, this just, it is so much worse than any situation I can think of. And one of the interesting, there are some interesting comments coming out of this. Jeff O'Neill was quoted as having said that this could ruin Mike Hoffman's career. And the reason why is, as another tweet said, so you're a Senators fan, I'm a Senators fan, we can discuss this as Senators fans. Mike Hoffman needs to go. Fine. What dressing room would want that in there? If these allegations are true. But even if they're not, even with this cloud hanging over Hoffman, do you want him in your locker room? Because what was said and made a lot of sense was, Karlsson has friends all over the league. It's not like you trade him out of Ottawa and everybody in the new locker room, no matter where it is going to be like, Karlsson, what's he like? Oh, well, I've never met him. No, this, and again, you know, hockey, and I think this is true in most sports, basketball especially. You'll see guys who are on opposing teams and they become buddies, and then all of a sudden the next summer they're like, hey, we should go to this city. And, you know, that happens. So in hockey, you have guys who are from different teams, and through charity events, international tournaments, whatever the case may be, they may end up hanging out together, playing together, practicing together. Karlsson's made a lot of friends. I've never heard anybody say anything about Karlsson, and I'm going to say this too. I've never heard anything said about Hoffman. That's why this whole thing is so bloody weird. I find it so odd. But because of the fact that I haven't seen anybody defending Hoffman's fiance, I will be interested to see how this turns out. If this is proven to be just, it's not her, it's somebody else harassing her. It's an awful story no matter how it turns out. You know, I've got this channel of 46,000 subscribers, and I'm very, very grateful. But I have learned in recent weeks, take anything that involves my personal life, I can't mention it online, ever. It's just there's no point. Don't ever mention anything personal online again. Just forget it. So I cannot imagine how much hockey players put up with regularly. I can't imagine how much their wives put up with regularly. I remember April Reimer and some of the things that were said towards her on social media. It's part of the reason I still follow April Reimer, and I've you know publicly supported posts of hers in the past because again the wife's an easy target, and I think when the truth comes out, and the truth is going to, because here's where hockey pisses me off. So this report's come out publicly now that this is in motion and it's in the courts. The NHL has started an investigation. Did they start it when these allegations were made, or did they start it because it's become public? That's what I'd love to know. And the Senators have started an investigation. Again, did they start the investigation when they knew what was going on, or did they start the investigation yesterday when it became public? And again, the NHL has this bad habit of these horrible PR things come out, and then they decide to do something about it, and then you find out they kind of knew. It's sort of like when it came out that Alan Eagleson was incredibly crooked. Really, people should have figured that out earlier than they did. I mean, maybe people did, and just nothing was said, and then all of a sudden, publicly, hey, look, Alan Eagleson's a crook. People are like, I knew it, and yeah. Anyways, it is a horrible situation, and I don't know how you fix this. And now, sadly, it's being tacked on to everything else Senators related. And I'm saying this as somebody who's cheered for the Senators for decades. And when I'm seeing things where this is being tacked on to how the team had a bad year and everything else, that no, this is not related to the team. This is not. It is okay if you're trying to figure out what's going to happen from here. This has nothing to do with everything else. This is something that is very personal. These two men and other hockey players have come out on Twitter and in interviews and said the same thing I've said, that they don't see any way that these two men can be in a locker room together after this. That whether it's true or false, they don't see any way that these two men can be in a locker room together. Just can't happen. So the Senators are in a really bad position because if they trade Karlsson and they keep Hoffman, and if these accusations are true, they are keeping a guy who basically will be the most unpopular man in the locker room. Think about it. How in the world would he be treated by his teammates that the best player that's ever played for the Senators, no offense to Daniel Alfredsson, none, or the amazing Alexei Yashin, or the superstar Danny Heatley, what is it with Senators? The fact is that if Hoffman and his girlfriend, if this is true, okay, let's just say this is true, and Hoffman's denied it. She hasn't said anything publicly, but he's denied it for her. So, and not being a person that has any inside information, if it's not true, or is true, and we'll go with the is true first. So it is true. Karlsson gets traded. He's persona non grata in that room. Absolutely. And when the wives hang out together, she won't be welcome there. And the fans, just think of what the fans would chant or say, or just, if it's another really bad year for Ottawa, let's just say that they trade Karlsson and the guys they get back aren't good enough and the team tanks next year. What is going to be said about Hoffman in media, by fans? How much will they get harassed online? Where do you trade Hoffman to? If it's true, where do you send Hoffman? For what? There's no way that his trade value hasn't dropped. And I find it very interesting that Darren Dreger's reporting, yeah, Ottawa's been trying to trade Hoffman, not Karlsson, which means that Pierre Dorion, seeing the situation, has gone, man, I can't keep Hoffman. We got to get rid of Hoffman, and was probably trying to get him out the door before this became public. And now, teams that may have been offering a first rounder and a player, or a first rounder and a prospect player and a second rounder, these guys are all saying, you know what? On the other hand, no, I'm good with what we've got. I'm not gonna make that move. Sorry, Pierre, we're not touching him until we know exactly what happened. And with online accounts, you may not. You may not. Um, it happens. And I mean, if like I said, I've got a small YouTube channel, um, and the harassment exists. It happens, and I cannot imagine how bad it is for people who are millionaires and are expected uh, to be gods out there, and some of the criticism people get, I'm like, wow, really? But again, the troll accounts are usually pretty bad. Um, I've never trolled an athlete. I've never thought about trolling an athlete. I know one athlete that I see get trolled a lot is Jeannie Bouchard. Jeannie Bouchard, who at one point was a tennis star at, in the 40s. I think she was in the 40s or 30s overall worldwide, and it's fallen way off. But some of the comments whenever she posts a picture are kind of nasty. Some are entertaining, some are funny, but not the really trolly ones. And it's based on the idea that she's not living up to the standard that they had for her. And they take shots at her personal life, they take shots at the kind of pictures she's taking and where she is, and it's just ridiculous. And again, it's the new nature of online behavior, and it's not something that I think as a society we should be. Hey, look how far we came. It's insane, and I hope that this gets resolved quickly, but I'm not sure how. So there's the update on this. Apologize this took as long as it did, but it's got so many different potential outcomes to this, and I don't see a way that the Senators look back on this 6 months down the road and say, "Man, that was a blessing in disguise," because look where we are now. I don't know how that's going to work. But again, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, as I know you will. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And again, my heart goes out to Karlsson, his wife, on this situation that has if possible potentially made an awful, horrible situation that much worse. And I really had hoped this would be out of the public discourse by this summer, but this ugliness and now this court case have brought it all back out. So we're where we are. Thank you guys for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.